night, whatever you would like to call it. You are tuning in live to the Go Howdy studio, where we are bringing you yet another episode of Southern Sports Talk. And we are now in what we would like to call week 15, the conference championship week. And we got a big one in the SEC, a rematch. Should be a lot of fun to get into that, but we are going to table that for the time being. Gentlemen, I think we have now officially entered what I would like to call the sky is falling time for our programs because as we know, neither of our programs are going to be in the conference championship game. And that thing that we all love called the transfer portal has opened up. And it seems like everybody and their mom has decided to jump into the portal. However, we also had early National Signing Day. And so now, while we were watching some guys leave out of the program or into the portal, we're also now seeing some guys start to sign and come in. I know A&M had a pretty good signing day, but I did not get that much of a temperature on how you guys did for the early signing period. So, Jerry, while it might seem like the sky is falling over in LSU because you lost your quarterback and now you got some key guys jumping into the portal, what's early signing day looking like over there in Baton Rouge?
So, first off, let's make sure we have the air completely cleared. The sky ain't falling. Does it suck that in the world of NIL deals that we basically have an issue where teams can come in at the 11th hour and buy players away? Yeah, it sucks. But all in all, it's not too bad because I know Cody and I had a conversation about this a couple of weeks ago. When was the last time we had like a true number one quarterback, basically on par like Bryce Underwood? And that was maybe Trevor Lawrence. Other than that, rankings really don't mean anything. Like, yes, it's a good way to gauge where players are at as far as their skill. But all in all, I like to wait until we have pen on paper and that it's officially faxed over, because if the fax ain't in, then it don't really matter. But looking at LSU's recruiting class, I mean, I think we did pretty darn good. Not to go too much in the details with it, but I mean the big ones that we have for this, and I'll share it if Cody can stop clicking his keyboard over there. The loud
sorry.
mess.
Yeah.
Arguably the biggest players that we got in the recruiting class is DJ Pickett and Harlem Berry. The Solomon Thomas, that was a Florida State commitment all the way up until the Tuesday, where Florida State got rid of I believe there was their offensive line coach, and that was his main reason to go there. And so we had a big flip there, and I can just go on and on about the rest of the class. But as you can see, LSU finishes in the top 10 nationally, which is crazy thing that they're also fifth in the SEC just because of how competitive the SEC is. But all in all, like, I'm fine. And what I did hear from a local ESPN radio host, Matt Moscona, in the Baton Rouge area.
Jerry, you sound just like somebody who's not fine.
No, you can be quiet right now, sir. It's my time. But a local ESPN fellow was saying, like, he has a connection with the LSU football program, and because of the Bryce Underwood deal not going through, as well as I forget the other one, but it was a defensive back that was originally committed to Texas, then committed to LSU, and then went back to Texas at the 11th hour. They're quote unquote flush with cash, which we know after what happened last season, especially for LSU fans, we need to hit the transfer portal and we need to get quality guys and not just bodies to fill position rooms. So it's nice to see what we were able to do. I do hope we get a quarterback, and rumor has it Jackson Arnold may be in the mix. But as far as players leaving and transferring out, there's really not that many. The biggest one was I think Hilton is the only one who transferred in from Liberty, and now he's transferring out. And that's it. Will Campbell, we knew he was going to leave for the NFL draft. Mason Taylor, the tight end, was a bit of a surprise. We still don't know about Nussmeier, but rumor has it is that he's going to be coming back. So I'm feeling good about it. I like this recruiting class. I think we're A-okay.
Yeah, spoken like a person who doesn't feel good about it and is on the copium, but that's okay.
Does it look like I'm sweating bullets or anything?
It's fine. I would be too if I was in the position, but Florida's only a top 10 recruiting class this year, not a top 5. So I guess I can hold my peace that way. But to speak to Billy Napier's efforts, top 10 is fantastic for how they did this season. He is out recruiting Dan Mullen by quite a bit. Like, that's one thing no one can take away from him. And it's something that we're going to have to reflect on hard, because the last time we had a really good recruiting coach was Ron Zook or Urban Meyer first. But Ron Zook was an ace at recruiting, and he'd never really produced anything for us. But you look at Florida's wins, and the obvious wins are they stole from the south of Florida. Florida is traditionally stealing from Georgia, coastal Alabama, central Florida, northern Florida, but they actually went into Miami, grabbed some guys, flipped a lot of guys off of FSU, which is a big deal, because not only are we winning recruiting battles, we're getting them to come to the good guys. We're getting them to come to Florida. And of course, the biggest one I'm so excited to watch, I want to see Ty Jackson play. Number 1 recruited inside backer going to Florida. Inside backers have a special place in my heart. So I really want to see how they incorporate them into this light nickel scheme that they've been running in Napier's defense. Personally, offensively, I see that they also went out and got some weapons, but I don't know. I don't know much about some of these weapons. Vernell Brown is supposed to be a very highly touted recruit. Stole him from FSU out of the south of Florida. And of course, they have Nashawn Montgomery, who is supposed to also be a massive time talent. I mean, if you're from the south of Florida, I trust that you're a good athlete. So all these Miami recruits we're bringing in, I think it's doing nothing but making the offense better.
That's a pretty good bet. I mean, there's a lot of guys in South Florida that can run and catch a ball and run fast, or just overall do whatever they want on a football field. So anybody coming out of there is probably a good bet.
Also, I kind of wish the one position I think I want to see Florida do a little better at is right now tight end. And they did go out and get a 3-star that looks like he can do the position, Micah Jones. He's kind of the blocking tight end size. He's 6'5", 250. Not bad for Napier's scheme, but it kind of feels like we were missing that key piece. Like, we just didn't have that underneath, that drag route, that consistent drag route to kind of keep defenses honest underneath us. So hopefully,
sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead. No, yeah, what you got?
No, that was actually going to be my question for everyone is, what was that position that you felt like your team could not miss out on this recruiting cycle? And do you think after the early signing period that they tackled that?
I'd say tight end, and I'd say probably not. I think they got a guy. He might develop into something, but it's not painted in the stars that he's going to be something amazing.
And before Kyle goes on, answer says, for me, LSU was defensive line and defensive backs, and I think they did it.
Yeah, that's a great question from you. I would say the one position that A&M is really lacking on, and it's shown its ugly head all season, was the receiving corps. I mean, it's obvious that we had a power running game, a power running scheme that was working at times, but it wasn't there all the time. And while we've got guys like Noah Thomas, and unfortunately Ja'Day Walker is going to go on now, he'll be graduating, which were our 2 main targets, it would have been nice to see A&M bring in a little more on early signing day from the receiver position. Right now, we currently only have 1 wide receiver signed out of Texas, out of Hitchcock, Texas, 4-star recruit. So, hopefully he'll be the guy. But I tell you what, for a program right now that was set back a couple years by the likes of Jimbo Fisher, Mike Elko really did a great job so far on the recruiting trail, especially after some big losses there towards the end of the season. We had a lot of guys in, and not only the LSU game, but also in for the Texas game. And I think the atmosphere of being in Kyle Field, when you've got 109,000 people, and the traditions and just the pageantry that is Kyle Field, really helped to sell some of these kids on being able to sign to come to A&M. We had some last-minute flips. We flipped Lamont Rogers from Mizzou at the last second. We also flipped, I believe it was Tristan Norman from Mizzou. So there was 2 guys that were going to go to Missouri, and they come to a visit when we played Texas and end up signing with A&M. I tell you what, though, there was a lot of good names that I really would like to keep an eye on next season to see how they fit in. Kelvion Riggins, he is a linebacker from Forney, Texas, that I think is going to go in nicely. Cody, you would have to correct me because I'm not as familiar on Scooby Williams as you were, but I believe that he is going to be done after this year.
So it looks like I don't think he's into staying too much longer. He's a pretty good prospect, and yeah, I mean he had a pretty decent year there at A&M. I think he's a body that a lot of people would draft. I actually think if he has a good combine, I don't see any reason he can't sneak into the 3rd or 4th round. I don't know if he's not like Walter Nolan. What's his face from Ole Miss? The defensive tackle and interior lineman. Anyway,
is it Walter Nolan? Maybe
I think it's Walter Nolan. Yeah, he's not quite that level of defensive player. Like, I don't know. I don't see him as being like the guy who stands out on y'all's defense that much. But he had a solid year, and he's a solid body, solid skill set. Like, I don't know anyone that would pass him up if his combine goes well.
Yeah, for sure.
So let me ask you that. What do you think about Missouri being a strange pipeline for you guys? Like, that kind of seems out of nowhere for A&M.
I tell you what, looking, not only Missouri, but looking at this early signing period, we signed 3 guys from California, 3 4-star guys from California, mind you. So I don't know what Elko's got going on out there.
Any Matter Day guys?
I would have to go look at them a little more in depth. I see a San Ramon Valley linebacker, 6'5", 230. So let's see how that kid moves. That's a monster of a man. And also a Noah McHale, another guy there from Bonita, where he went to school over in Laverne, California. Another 6'3", 225, just a monster of a man. So I'd say we really shored up the linebacking position, which is good because Torian York has just carried the load this year. Scooby Williams definitely helped out a lot. And then last year we had Edrin Cooper that definitely helped out a lot as well. So it's nice to see those guys come in. We also upgraded the running back room. Hopefully next year, if the injury bug bites us yet again, we'll have some other guys to go in there. We got a guy named Jamarion Morrow out of Tennessee, who was a big pickup last minute, and also a guy out of DeSoto, which I know you guys don't follow high school football as closely as I do, but
you should know who DeSoto is, though. Like, kind of like I just name drop Matter Day, or St. Thomas Aquinas in Florida. You got to know those, right? Or IMG.
That's another one that, DeSoto, Duncanville, those are right up there. And to think they're only about 10 minutes apart in the Metroplex is really crazy to see the amount of athletes they produce out of there. And then the last guy I'd like to point out, we got one down from Katy. Where'd his name go? There it is. Dejon Pettyway, 4-star cornerback, lengthy guy at 6'1". So we'll see how he fits in. We do have Will Lee coming back. He announced that he's going to be back for another year. So we'll see how Pettyway fits into the scheme here. But yeah, I think so far we can all say we're pretty excited for the guys that have come in, at least in the early signing period. Jerry, I see you've got the rankings pulled up there.
Yeah, we're right sequential with each other, aren't we?
Just about, yeah. I wanted to ask before we transition away from recruiting and go into the next topic, just looking at the macro data where the teams in the SEC rank, is there anything that stands out to y'all?
Yeah, you're on it right now. What is Auburn putting in the water with these recruits?
Right. Auburn and Oklahoma.
What a class sign for them.
Even Oklahoma. I mean, look.
I give it to Oklahoma. Oklahoma has a tradition of heavy recruiting. Like, they are very good at convincing Texas players, like, hey, if you don't go to UT, where else are you going to go? Like,
but look at that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. What? Your top 7 are all out of the SEC?
Yeah, that's two. That's
this is all SEC ranking.
Oh,
excuse me. Okay. ESPN's pretty lock and step with that.
Right.
Okay. I thought that was. Oh, I see the national ranks there. 1, 2, 5, maybe the numbers underneath.
3. No, because I believe LSU, and I can do this real quick. Let's see.
Oregon had a great day also, so they finished really high.
Okay.
That may be their previous one. I'm not 100% certain what the box of it means. But no, these are. This is SEC rankings. Yeah. So, yeah.
Still looking good, though.
Yeah, I think the biggest surprise for good is Auburn, like you said, Cody. But what's also bad, shocking, look at Ole Miss.
That's, Lane Kiffin style, though. He doesn't really care about the high school. Well, I'm not going to say he doesn't care, but he tends to go more for the portal guys than he does high school.
I mean, he has 22 commits. That's more than half of your roster right there for your signing class.
Yeah.
I thought
Well,
you could have a roster of 85.
No. But the signing class, I believe, is only 35 per year.
Oh, I see what you're
I mean,
saying.
yeah, if you have players transferring out, then it increases.
Yeah, you got that's crazy to think about too.
Yeah. And then
Also,
Arkansas is down here as well. This is
Oklahoma
weird.
has a drastically different grade from ESPN.
Yeah, I trust 24/7 Sports or on3.com about my rankings, so that's why I went with this. But no, I mean, so far as the SEC is concerned, I mean, I'm liking the numbers. It's very good. And then even going to the nation, zooming out a bit. I mean, you have Georgia, Alabama. You have, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 teams in the top 10 nationally.
10. Wow. Look at
Auburn being
Oklahoma
one of
up
those.
there.
That blows my mind.
Yeah, Auburn. There must be something in the water, a lot of money being thrown down there. So, one more question for you guys before we move on. If you were a head coach right now and you're looking at your team and you're looking at what you could do, are you really trying to get mixed up in these bidding wars for guys that you don't really know exactly what they're going to do? Or are you taking more of the wild, wild west approach and just trying to poach the guys that you already know what they can do and what they're capable of in the portal?
Cody, you want to go first?
The latter. I think the latter is easily the better answer. Only because you saw that Ole Miss went from barely relevant to I mean, like, they had the best defensive line in the country. The fact that they didn't put it together is not their. I'm not going to put it on the players because those guys are. I'm going to see a lot of those guys in NFL jerseys one day. I'm going to put that on Lane Kiffin and his coaching staff that they couldn't get that to work. I think that at the moment, you look at things like Arch Manning, I don't think he's going to stay if they don't give him a starting job within a year. I don't think so. I think it's the same scenario that LSU's got going on right now. Yeah, you brought in Ricky Collins, but it's hard to keep these guys entertained when they see DJ Lagway, when they see Sellers, when they see all these freshman quarterback getting these starts and really getting their name out there. They're like, why am I sitting here waiting? I could be playing literally anywhere else and making a better statement. Nussmeier's situation where he stayed and waited is going to be, I think, the exception, not the rule.
I can agree with that last statement you said. It's going to be the exception and not the rule. I kind of forgot your question, but I think I know what it was basically there, Kyle. I agree with how I heard the explanation again from Matt Moscona from Baton Rouge, ESPN. He was saying that, like, for Bryce Underwood, they had a dollar amount of what they were willing to spend. Like, they have the revenue share. They know how much they can spend, and they allocated it based on the players. And they basically said, yeah, we are not going to exceed this dollar amount. And then any other team that came after, it was either like they basically said, we're firm on this. We hope you come to our school and we'll develop you because you know the history behind LSU. You're going to the NFL, a very good opportunity and chance that you will. But if you want the money now, take it. And that's what we saw with Bryce Underwood. I think he's the exception to the NIL stuff. I mean, $12 million is an insane amount of money. But even with like a smaller one, the defensive back that flipped from LSU to Texas, I think LSU offered him 1.25 and Texas came in at the 11th hour, offered him $2 million, and then he decided to take it.
When you're talking millions, though, that seems like such a small amount. Like, we've already crossed the M, like 1.25 to 2. What is
that's $750,000.
Yeah, but you're already a millionaire. Like, what is it? That's like saying,
right.
You know, I get what you're saying, but it's like to flip programs and like total schemes just for that small of a difference in the pay, 1.25 to 2.
It's good. Like, we're at the peak of the perfect storm right now with it. Like, there's already reports of players and families about to file lawsuits against athletic programs where they were promised money. I think Tulsa is in the firing range right now because of it, where a player was promised X amount of dollars. Coach just got let go, and he admitted there is no money to be had.
Yeah, UNLV, Florida, and LSU are all dealing with a scenario being sued over
Wow.
NIL related stuff.
Hopefully that's not the route that college football is going down, because we knew that this was going to be a big problem coming into it, but now you're looking at potentially getting lawyers involved with 17, 18-year-old kids, or even the older guys like Alex Bowman, who's coming back for his 8th year of college football, which is just
wild,
mind-boggling. But he won his appeal, so okay. Well, we talked about the recruiting classes and the guys that we're looking at our schools that are bringing in. So let's take a step further and let's talk about the big performers out of the SEC this year, as we all are trying to be aspiring members of the sports media world. And maybe one day we'll all get a vote in this, but not likely.
Ooh,
so let's
could
just
you
live
imagine?
That'd be fun. Let's live out our daydream here, which is having a vote in who the all SEC team would be for this season. So
I volunteer to go first.
Go ahead.
Made a presentation.
Let's do it by position. Like we'll each name our quarterback, and then we'll each name our halfback. Each name.
See, I would, but I did a presentation.
Okay, let's vote. How are we going to do this, Kyle?
I mean,
I
did go position. It looks like I lost,
bad.
so it doesn't matter.
Oh wait, no, that's the wrong PowerPoint. I'm sorry. This one. There we go.
Oh wow, I see what you did there. Wow.
Wait.
You're already out of bounds on yours. No, we have to do it by position.
No.
This can't. You're not going to be allowed to talk straight through these picks. That's insane.
How do I present this?
Well, since you can't figure out how to work,
I'll figure it out.
technology.
Y'all go ahead and do whatever y'all want.
All right, so Cody, we win anyway at the end of the day.
Pocket.
So let's talk about the most important position on the football field. Yeah, how about quarterback?
Let's do it.
Let's go there, Cody. Since you're eager to go position by position, kick us off. Who is your vote for
quarterback? This was the most disappointing year for quarterbacks in the SEC. You had the most potential talent on the field, and none of them really covered all the bases they were supposed to. Jalen Milroe kind of fell through. Garrett Nussmeier had one of the worst mid-seasons of the entire SEC roster. Some of the best talents didn't get their starting jobs till the end of the season. So I have to go with who was the most consistent, and unfortunately for the viewing pleasure of everyone out there in college football, that is Jackson Dart. He was the most consistent quarterback across all ranks and produced statistically the best season in what was a letdown season for all of SEC quarterbacks.
Yeah. I would have to – this was hard for me when I was looking at this, because when you go, you really want to sometimes you want to look at the stats and be like, oh, well, he had the best stats. So, yeah, he's got to be the one, right? So if you go into quarterback and you look at passing yards and passing touchdowns, obviously Jackson Dart fits that mold, right? Had the high-flying offense over with the Rebels, and he throws a lot of yards and throws for a lot of touchdowns. However, I'm going to pull the Lee Corso not so fast on you on this one, because I went with Jalen Milroe. And my reason being, Jalen Milroe threw for 15 touchdowns this year, but he also rushed for 20 touchdowns. He almost rushed for as many touchdowns as Jackson Dart threw for. And so to me, I mean, you talk about Heisman, but I even look at the all SEC team as like, who was the most impactful in their position to their team? And when I thought about it like that, I had to go with Jalen Milroe. I mean, he accounted for 35 touchdowns this year. Huge number in the passing. Let's see, he had 2,600 passing yards. And then when you go and look at his rushing yards as well, he was right here. He had 719 rushing yards on the year too. So he accounted for 3,300 yards of offense and 35 touchdowns. That's where my vote went. Jerry, did you figure out how to work your presentation yet?
I did. Y'all ready for it?
Not really.
Hey, go ahead. Hit us with what we got.
All right.
Hit us with just the quarterback, and then we'll move on.
Just the quarterback. And then you could take your
All right,
screen
hold
down.
on. Let me flip through it.
Did you think we were just going to sit here and watch you give a PowerPoint presentation for like 15 minutes?
Well, first off, it doesn't take me 15 minutes to do a PowerPoint presentation. Like, who gives a PowerPoint presentation for 15 minutes?
Who gives a PowerPoint presentation on a podcast?
Well,
good point.
Not on a podcast anymore, my friend. Remember, we're now live. People can see stuff.
All right. Quarterback pick.
Who you got? I got Jackson Dart as well. Okay. I mean, he has the best completion percentage in the SEC. He had a total of 3,800 passing yards, and his touchdown interception ratio is a very good one. Where I disagree with Kyle's pick with Jalen Milroe is the amount of just poor games that Milroe has had. Because if you're thinking about who's going to be the top dog, like essentially the Heisman pick for the quarterback position, they need to have consistency from week 1 to week 14 or week 15. Milroe had at least 2 games where it was just like, what is this quarterback? Are we even sure he's good?
I mean, Oklahoma alone, right?
Right, exactly. Jackson Dart, though he did lose games, it's again, remember, we have to remember it's a team sport, but he was more consistent across the entire one.
Just contradicted yourself. Yeah, it is a team sport.
Well, yeah, I mean, but who's
also can't block and pass and throw all at the same time.
Jalen Milroe was the bad part of his team in some of those games.
Right.
Like, sure.
Especially the Oklahoma game.
Did any of us actually watch that game?
He was also I did actually.
He was also the phenomenal part of the win against Georgia. But the thing about Jackson Dart is his worst game was against Florida, and where he threw 2 interceptions. His first time throwing 2 interceptions in 2 seasons. That's got to speak for something.
So are you going to go running back next?
Yes,
running back's next.
We will agree to disagree.
Wow,
and let's move on to running back. Yeah, that's actually really fascinating that you two agreed on something. So.
If this isn't unanimous, this pick right here is the only one I think should be unanimous for all.
Okay, so I don't think it will be, but this may surprise y'all.
How is it not? Wait, you just jumped me, but okay, we'll go ahead.
We're going in like the snake order with it. You went first in the first round. I go first in the second.
All right.
Marquez Hunter gets my pick.
It's
not only
that's not his name, by the way.
That's not?
No, it's Jarquez.
Oh, stupid. You know what? Okay, complete disclaimer. I know I typed it correctly, but you know how Apple is with their autocorrect with a lot of stuff?
Okay, here we go.
Shut it. Hunter, running back, Auburn. Sorry for the autocorrect because Apple is stupid. I mean, 6.4 yards per carry, averaging 100 yards per game. He, like Samson with Tennessee, yeah, he is a good running back. But if you compare the statistics, Hunter had half the carry attempts and was only 200 yards less than Samson. And then he was on a bad team. It's like he was a workhorse for a garbage Auburn team. That's my pick.
Okay. Now that you're done being wrong.
Focus yourself, Cody.
I don't know how to make it do. Hold on. Maybe I can make it do it like this.
Kyle, go ahead while Cody fixes himself.
Okay. Kyle, go.
Okay. Yeah, I'm with Cody on this one. It's pretty unanimous. If you ask me, it's Dylan Sampson. I mean, I'm not disagreeing with the points you made. Yeah, he's on a bad team. Blah 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 blah. He had half the carries, but touchdowns. 22. Jarquez
hard to get touchdowns 8. When the quarterback is a blind mouse.
Also, you forget that the quarterback for Tennessee was not performing well in the beginning of the season. The only reason Tennessee won games is because of Sampson.
Correct.
Auburn didn't have a quarterback at all.
Neither did Tennessee to start the year.
And so they lost more games because their running back couldn't carry the heavy load as much as Dylan Sampson could. So Dylan Sampson carries the load for 22 touchdowns, and now they're looking at a playoff berth.
At least Nico can get the ball to receivers.
He couldn't, though. Remember, at the beginning of the season, he was averaging like 130 yards a game. Like, it was terrible.
That's 100 yards more than the Auburn's quarterback.
No, it wasn't. Auburn was throwing for like 300 yards and 5 interceptions. That was the only difference.
It's true. It's true. They were finding anybody but an Auburn receiver to start the year out. So, well, when quarterback went one way and I got outvoted, Jerry, now you get outvoted this time, and we go with Dylan Sampson as the running back for the all-SEC team. So, next, I would like to throw a little bit of a curveball, and let's go with tight end.
I think we need Cody's. Do you want to have 2 cents, or
still
you don't care? You're not even on anymore, dude.
I know.
He gone.
Hey,
no one wanted to see you anyway.
Wow.
Can you hear me, though?
Yes, we can hear you.
All right. As long as you can hear me, I'll fix the camera part in a second.
Okay.
But, all right. So, for receiver, this was a little harder because like it is one of those things where I didn't want to give it to the guy with stats that much. Oh, but it's kind of hard not to. I think Trey Harris was better when he was on the field than every other receiver in the SEC. The problem he had was his availability, obviously, right? But when he gets the ball, he is better with it in his hands than anybody else. And he still finished the season with 7 touchdowns, missing, I think, 2 or 3 games. I don't know. I have to give him. I wanted to go with Ryan Williams of all people. Honestly, I think Ryan Williams is had the most dynamic season by far. He goes further with the ball than anyone else. He catches deeper passes, but I don't know. I just had to give it to Trey. I think he has the most consistent performance. I think he'll be the best at the next level.
So Cody, just to make sure you understood the assignment, this is the all SEC team. Like if you were to put this up against other conferences throughout the entire season, you're going with the injury-prone Trey Harris.
I trust Trey Harris. I mean, like everyone else just doesn't produce or get open like he does, in my opinion, whenever it's time to do that. Like, I feel like when he's in the game, Ole Miss is a much better team. And they lost, I think, 2 games when he wasn't on the field.
Okay, Jerry, who's your pick?
So y'all are going to think it's bias. I went back and forth with this quite a bit when doing my research with it. And for me, Kyron Lacy, to counter what Cody said, Kyron Lacy is, though he may have moments within a game where he has a few drops here and there, not going to say that he didn't. But he's consistent. Like he's clutch. You know that in the big moment he's going to be able to perform, and he was consistent through the entire season. I mean, his average yards per game doesn't match up to the other top receivers in the conference. He didn't eclipse 1,000 yards, which is a bummer. It would be great to see, but 9 touchdown receptions is one of the highest ones in the SEC compared to other receivers. And again, clutch when you need it. So I choose Kyron Lacy for the wide receiver.
I'm about to give you a controversial opinion. I don't even know if he's the best receiver on his team.
Ooh.
I think Aaron Adams is, to me, the more dynamic player for sure.
I don't think we have an Aaron Adams.
Is that not how you say his name? Am I wrong about that? Aaron Anderson. I'm sorry.
There we go. I was about to say.
I think Aaron Anderson is better. I just remember watching him play last game and juking out, or the last 2 games and juking out everybody.
But that's the thing. Like Aaron Anderson was great in a pinch of games, whereas Lacy has been consistent through all games.
Well, when it came down to my pick, this one I did just kind of base off of stats, but I also had to look at, the receptions. To me, that made a big impact on my decision is, you can rack up a lot of yards, but if you do it with 150 catches on the year, I mean, anybody can catch 2-yard slants. So I agreed with Cody on this one. I went with Trey Harris, and let me tell you why. Andrew Armstrong led the league in receiving this year. He had 78 catches for 1,100 yards and 1 touchdown. So to me, I think he got loose 1 time.
Trey Harris, fella out of Arkansas, right?
Yes, out of Arkansas, yeah. But Trey Harris missed how many games this year? And not only missed games, missed big games when they could have really used him. Against
I think he missed like 2 or 3 games completely, but then he had another 2 or 3 games where he only played like a quarter or half of ball.
He made 1 reception against Florida, and it was their biggest play.
Yeah. So take the amount of times he was sitting on the sideline or in the locker room because he was injured. He still racked up 60 catches this year for over 1,000 yards and 7 touchdowns. Just, you could play the what if game all you want, but if he's on the field, for all those games that he sat out, I mean, you might be looking at a 1,500-yard receiver this year just because of how dynamic he was when he was on the field. So when I took all that into effect, as much as it pains me to sometimes pick Lane Kiffin and his guys, I I had to give it to Trey Harris. I think he was probably the best receiver in the SEC this year.
Don't get me wrong. I do believe that Trey Harris is a fantastic receiver. It's the injury aspect of it. Because if I'm going to be critical about Jalen Milroe having down games, it's the same kind of situation. If he's not performing in a game for either just a bad game in general or injuries, then that's all essentially an automatic disqualifier, in my opinion. But still, when he's healthy, fantastic wide receiver. Completely agree.
I mean, you're not wrong. Very dynamic. So let's stay in the pass catcher realm, and let's just shift over to tight end on this one. Cody, I believe Jerry kicked off wide receiver, so you go ahead with tight end.
All right, tight end. Jerry, you said earlier that when we were coming up with this idea, that tight end was the hardest position, and yes, it is by far the hardest position to pick for this group, I feel. And it came down to 3 of them for me. I thought we had almost a 3-way tie, and I had to go back and watch film, try to figure some things out, and I went with Joshua Simon from South Carolina as my pick. I think Joshua Simon was instrumental as a bailout tool for Sellers this year. And having that long receiving tight end, he's physical, but he's not going to be a run block tight end at the next level. That's not who he is. He's going to be a receiving tight end. And he definitely, I think, he's the player when I think about like who makes All-American safeties and All-American linebackers act like, please don't put me on him. Like make the nickelback go over there. This is that guy in the SEC.
Yeah, 100% agree. This one, like I said, was the hardest one to pick because, I mean, tight ends have a double duty of being a hybrid offensive lineman a majority of the time. And Cody, you said it perfectly. He's not going to be a traditional tight end at the NFL. He's going to be a hybrid big man wide receiver like we see Jimmy Graham do, you know? So, yeah, I agree. Joshua Simon got my nod.
Well, I did not follow suit, and as it may come as a surprise to many of our spectators, I actually went to my hated rival on this one when I came up with my tight end, and I went with Gunnar Helm. You know, that I think Gunnar Helm was a guy all year that he kind of flew under the radar because you got guys like, you know, you got Ewers on the team, you got Isaiah Bond, you got Wiesner running for all those yards. And Gunnar Helm quietly had himself a year, racked up 48 catches, 600 yards, 5 touchdowns. But here was the big decider for me. When you talk about that constant improving and desire to get better and wanting to be the guy, before this season in 22 and 23, he only racked up 19 catches altogether. And this year he explodes for 48 catches for over 600 yards. And like I said, he was kind of quietly under the radar, but he came up big when Texas needed him. You go back and watch the Kentucky game, had a couple big receptions, a big touchdown in that game. And then obviously, you know, you could pick a handful of games, but he made an impact against A&M as well. Whenever we had all the guys covered downfield, here he comes sliding out in the flats. And not only can he catch it, but he can run it. He's a big guy that can move. He was pretty shifty, made some of our guys miss, and not afraid to run you over either. Big frame at 6'5", 250. So there's a guy that you're probably going to be watching on Sundays somewhere, you know, doing that dual blocking and receiving role. And I know there's a team out there that could really use somebody like that. You know, maybe the Dallas Cowboys. I'm just throwing it out there. Moving on. Finally, the last position that we decided on for the all SEC team, we decided to pick one offensive lineman out of the whole SEC. So, Jerry, who'd you pick?
Yeah, so again, not trying to be biased. I don't think anyone would, like, you can make an argument for this fellow for sure. Will Campbell, did he have some penalty bugs here and there? Yes, but he played 866 snaps, which is a lot of snaps. Only 1 sack, 4 hits, and 9 hurries. That's a ridiculous statistic. Now, does he? I completely will admit that he needs to handle like the false start penalties, but that's something that can be easily fixed, and he's going to make a buttload of money at the next level. But to be at a left tackle where you have speedy edge rushers and linebackers trying to to just run around you, and he's still able to only give up 1 sack, 4 hits. That's a great number. So yeah, Will Campbell gets it for me.
And number 7, right? LSU's number 7 offensively.
Yes, the offensive side of the ball, number 7. That is correct.
Just shows you how much of an impact he had.
Couldn't legally give him the number 7, but
right. I think I saw the little patch on the jersey, right?
Yeah, he did have it on the left side of his jersey. He had it for, I think, definitely this entire season. I think it was even last season as well.
Oh, wow. All right, Cody, who you got?
Yeah, I had the same pick. It came down to him and Kelvin Banks, from Texas. Yeah. They both had fantastic seasons. There's no doubt about both offenses kind of going off. I think this year I think Kelvin Banks has only allowed 3 sacks total in his career at Texas, which is pretty ridiculous. But yeah, Will Campbell had quite the year. Like it's hard to kind of, especially to know against the players he went against and some of the defenses they went against. Like you did go against South Carolina, and that was an iffy game because they did get through, but South Carolina has a lot of guns. And so going against the likes of Kyle Kennard and a few others this season, I have to give him his props. The one thing also that I think kind of keeps him in the discussion is that LSU looked like they could obviously run their offense comfortably, putting him on an island. And they did that a lot. Like they were able to put chip blocks in other places where you have that reliability at left tackle. And I might not have watched Kelvin Banks enough to really know if he does the same thing. I'm sure he does. But to have that from your left tackle, the reliability of being like, look, bud, it's just you and whoever that is out there by yourselves. We have to give help somewhere else. And to do that consistently, yeah, I think you got to give it to Campbell. This one was one of the easier ones. Like I said, Banks kind of snuck in. I had to go do some research on him to find out if I was just overstepping here. I also looked into Jake Slaughter from Florida. I think this is the only time a Florida player actually kind of gets close. Jake Slaughter had a fantastic year for a center, but you can't beat what left tackles produce for an offense.
Yeah, especially when you consider that a lot of times your premier pass rusher is going to be on working against them on that side, trying to get the blind side. So, and I think it's a great point that you made. I would probably say the same things when it comes to that, because when you got a guy that you can put over there and you can trust that, number one, he's going to have your back, but number two, I don't have to go send any help over to that guy. We don't have to double team. We don't have to send the running back out to try to help. We can put him in different areas, and Will Campbell's just going to hold his own over there. That's pretty impressive, especially for how much they threw the ball this year. That's a really impressive statistic. I was just being selfish and threw out an honorable mention for him because I don't know if you guys know this, but I think our linemen were wearing roller skates the last 2 seasons. I don't know what they were doing, but we couldn't stop anybody. So I gave Trezun the third an honorable mention here. He anchored an Aggie offensive line this year that went under a complete reconstruction. And when you think about their performance over the last 2 years to this year, he was kind of the senior leader, been starting there multiple years, and kind of helped step up and make a lot of the adjustments. He was the guy that made all the calls on the offensive line, checking coverages and checking protection. So, I got to give him an honorable mention, but obviously the pick here is going to be Will Campbell. Yeah, I would have to agree with you guys, especially after seeing those stats that Jerry put on his presentation that he worked so hard on.
Speaking of presentation, I got one more, and I think this will be a clean sweep. Head coach. Who's your all SEC head coach? Mine.
Beamer.
Yeah.
I'm about to say, I didn't even have to see the slide. It has to be Beamer.
Right. Yeah. I mean, talk about a heck of a turnaround. Going 5-7 to 9-3 in 1 year. Arguably should be 11-1. Just a few plays from being able to get that. Hits big in the transfer portal with Rocket Sanders and Kyle Kennard. Probably the biggest pickup being Kennard for this team. And I mean, you see him on the sidelines, you see him on social media. It looks like his players just absolutely love to play for him. So it seemed like no-brainer.
Yeah, I think Billy Napier just escapes this award this year against all my predictions, because I don't know how anyone finishes with the team he brought in this year. How you start like that with that schedule you have and finish with a winning record is beyond belief. but South Carolina shouldn't even been in the conversation this year. Like there was never supposed to be any attention on them. And he, like you said, he went and got key players. Kyle Kennard came from Georgia Tech, right?
I believe so. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't know who he was until he got to South Carolina, and now everyone knows who he is. And I think a lot of that has to do with, like you said, the culture they're building there. He buys into it. These players love playing for him. I know Kennard's going to go to the NFL in 2025, but man, I wish he wouldn't. I wish that he would have stayed.
Right.
Yeah, I think that speaks to the level of the award. When you think about a guy, just like you said, Kyle Kennard, nobody knew who he was until he transferred to South Carolina. So you talk about a coach's ability to take talent and put it on display, and not only that, but to help grow him into what he was this year is really, important. And so I'm going to step back and I'm going to apologize to Shane Beamer. I called you a gimmick before the season started. Okay. I thought this whole Beamer Ball 2.0 was just a gimmick and it would never work out. You made me eat my words. So thank you for that. So yeah, I think Shane Beamer obviously is a choice. I'm going to shout out my guy Elko coming in and cleaning up the mess that Jimbo Fisher left behind. Obviously I'm Homer and I'm biased, but when you take a team like Texas A&M and a program who only won 12 games in the last 2 seasons to this year, we're staring 9 wins right in the face is I think at least worth an honorable mention. But yes, Shane Beamer.
Right. And this is the preseason rankings going into the season. South Carolina was projected to finish 16, 15, 13th in the conference and should be up there in the top 5 if they're not already. It was a heck of a season. And also for Texas A&M, that's a good one. Florida, you know what? Let's just make it easy. I believe they have the standings here.
It's good podcasting right here.
Right.
All the listeners, not viewers.
Yeah, I mean,
we're looking at the incoming rankings and their actual results right now.
Right. So I mean, I think Tennessee was a surprise. South Carolina was definitely a surprise. Missouri is kind of where they were.
A lot of national pundits had Tennessee winning the SEC this year. A lot of people were high on Nico this year.
Yeah.
Their defense is not bad either. They have a top tier defense.
You know who wasn't a surprise? Cody's favorite team in the SEC.
Old Mississippi State, bro.
Mississippi State.
But things might look up for them. I do feel like they will. I don't feel like they have a bad thing going for them. They have, if you look, in fact, when we talk about defense next session, there's some Mississippi State players that are surprising in the defensive stats. So I want to talk real quick about how we're going to do defense, because as you know, defense has all these weird position titles. So we have to agree on what positions we're going to select. Starting at defensive line, I did it 2 ways. I did edge rusher and interior lineman. Is there any other way to do that, do you think? And by interior lineman,
the same way we did with offensive line, just anyone that.
No, it's not. No, because they're not the same. They play completely different.
The same thing with offensive guard and offensive tackle.
No, it's not. It's totally not. Defense is a different monster, and we're going to get to that too in the defensive backs in a second, because even ESPN gets confused on how to rank how to put titles next to some people. I think if you line up over the center or guard, or if you line up on the edge over the tackles or on the wide nines, those are two different positions on defensive line right now. There's probably an argument too for the nose guard, the straight up zero tech being different than all the rest of them. But
so we're saying D line, D end, linebacker.
Yeah, inside line. So when I put linebackers, I'm thinking about guys who play over the D line, not the edge of the defense. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, they stand behind the defensive line. They don't stand on the line of scrimmage.
Okay.
Jerry, you look confused or perplexed by that. Abdul Carter would count as an edge player, not a linebacker. Does that make sense?
No, I understand the premise of it. I think we're going very detailed.
That's that's football. That's defensive football. So then I selected a safety, a cornerback, And I don't know, should we select nickelback / defensive back / star?
No.
Because ESPN has all 3 positions listed differently. And I kind of agree with that because, like, the nickelback is different these days than they used to be. Like, there's not just a package player anymore. Like, you are an actual position on the field now.
Cornerbacks are going to be line of scrimmage or 5 yards back. And then all that you said is going to be the same.
Whoa.
Tyrann Mathieu is a safety. Let's go ahead and just do that. Tyrann Mathieu is like that wanderer of a player that you would need to like do all that. No.
But he doesn't go into the safety zones.
Doesn't matter. We're just going to group it that way, keep it simple.
I don't know, because when you see the players, I think it kind of mixes up. Like I made my selection already for these. I already know who I want, but I want another one. I want to make another pick. That's what I'm trying to get here.
Let's do punter.
We'll give you.
I do got punter. I do have punters. Punter and I got kicker already selected.
Oh, I didn't go that in depth, but yeah. Let's dive in depth.
I don't have a
to
long
something
snapper.
Other than the all SEC team here. Let's talk about the big one, the SEC championship game coming up this weekend. We have a rematch of a very high anticipated. Is that the right word for when these 2 teams played in the middle of the season? When you had Georgia going to Austin, now you've got these 2 guys coming back together to go for the title. So now the rankings are a little switched here. I believe Texas was number 1 when they played. Now they're down to 2, and Georgia's resting around that 5, I think, where they were the first time they played. So here we go for all the marbles. It's a tale of two seasons here, I believe. Both teams kind of struggled early on. Well, I mean, Texas kind of held the line there pretty much all season, but Georgia definitely struggled early on. Found against Texas, lost it again. Now maybe they found it again when they come back to the SEC championship game. So, Jerry, give me your pick for the big one.
I think Georgia gets their act together and wins this one. Because correct me if I'm wrong, Dory of a memory over here. Texas beat Georgia in the middle of the season, correct?
Negative.
I'm not thinking the other way. Oh, it was Georgia that beat Texas?
Georgia spanked them.
Okay.
It was Georgia's best game, honestly.
Yeah. I apologize. Then this may be Texas. Even though it's in Georgia, it's a 1 p.m. kickoff? No, 3. No. So there's actually a logic behind this. I heard that I think it's close to 80% of rematches that occur in the middle of the season, the team that previously lost wins the follow-up game.
Yeah, ask Auburn. Remember when they had to go, they beat Georgia, beat Alabama, had to replay Georgia, lose to Georgia, and they're robbed of the SEC title opportunity. I'm sorry, of the playoff opportunity because of that.
That's what I'm saying. Is that because Georgia beat Texas in the regular season, Texas will win this game. Because
can we think of times where the matchup hasn't done that? Because like Alabama did it to LSU in 2011. Yeah.
I think that happened to Florida as well, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, they lost to Florida State, play Florida again in the national title and win.
I think they even did that. That happened with 1 year with Alabama, playing in the regular season and then losing in the SEC championship game.
To Florida?
You're right.
No. I think Florida, Alabama, yeah.
No, Florida's never. I think, if I'm thinking about it correctly, Tim Tebow's record against Florida or against Alabama is like 2-3 or something like that. Or 1-2.
It's more common to see the previous loser win the next game in one season. That's why I'm thinking Texas. Plus, I mean, a spread of 2.5. Carson Beck, though he has improved the last previous games, I think he's going to struggle, and I think this is going to be Texas showing.
I mean, I agree with you. And it is for kind of the same reason. I don't trust Carson Beck. I don't think anyone should trust Carson Beck at this time. But at the same rate, he could be the guy that makes us all look really dumb. Like, and I fully accept that. This is not a Mississippi State guarantee to everybody, not the Mississippi State stamp of approval for betting on this one. But man, I just don't. Watching those games like where he threw 3 interceptions apiece. how do you have 3 games where you threw multiple interceptions this year? Like, Texas has got to have figured something out by now.
You would think so. I mean, Carson Beck with 12 interceptions on the year is a little troubling, and a lot of those coming in just a handful of games. It wasn't like it was a one every kind of game thing. It was multiple games of multiple interceptions. So, yeah, I mean, I think it's a tale of 2 Carson Becks. Which one shows up in Atlanta? Who's going to play this game? Is it going to be the guy that likes to throw the ball at the other team? Is there going to be the guy that puts on Superman's cape and leads his team back from a huge comeback or just completely dominates the football game? I think we saw a middle of the pack Carson Beck when he played against Georgia Tech. It wasn't like he was out there dominating, but he wasn't playing terrible either. He was just kind of doing enough to get by, especially when you go into the 8 overtimes, which was wild to begin with. But, man, when you look at, obviously they're going to go back and watch the game film. If they haven't already, they're going to multiple times to see what went wrong against Georgia if you're a Texas Longhorn. And then also Georgia's going to watch it to see, what did we do well and what can we continue to improve on. To say these are the same 2 teams that faced off middle of the season is, absurd because that's not the case. But I just think Georgia, they found something later in the season and they started clicking. Georgia Tech, the old, clean, old-fashioned hate or whatever they called it, was just a tough game when you play your rival no matter what. Even if you're undefeated or 0-10 going into that game, it's always going to be tough. So I think that team that played Tennessee shows up in this game, and I look for Georgia to claim yet another SEC title. And to, for Texas, great run. First year in the SEC, you make it to the title game. Awesome. I just don't know that it's their time just yet.
That's not the first time that's happened either. Missouri's first year in the SEC, they went to the SEC title game.
Back-to-back, actually. First 2
Yeah.
years.
What an entrance. That's over teams like Georgia and Florida at the time who were actually relevant. Florida was kind of showing signs of trouble in paradise, but Georgia especially.
Yeah.
I just want to point out on the screen here, Jerry, scroll back up just a little bit.
Scroll.
Don't click on that says buy a ticket there on the right side because that's the game at 1:00. And the game is actually at 3:00. So
yes,
3:00. Don't buy that ticket. Could be a scam. As low as $97. Here's what's crazy. I was talking to somebody today that has a family member going to the SEC title game. An SEC title game ticket, they paid about $250 to go to the SEC title game, but people were shelling out over $1,000 to go to the A&M Texas game. That's crazy to me.
Yeah, dude.
I couldn't believe that. It's like I thought it would cost more to go to the title game, but
I mean, no,
you can make an argument that rivalries are more important or carry more weight than a championship game.
Yeah, I think the cheapest tickets I ever paid for were to go to the Sugar Bowl when Florida played Louisville.
I think mine was Virginia Tech playing Michigan in the Sugar Bowl.
Well, there you go. I guess that's why I've never been to a bowl game. Well, actually, I take that back. I went to a Texas Bowl one year. Oh, Lord, that sounded bad that I'm bragging about that.
So, can I say something about bowls?
No. Please.
You can't say anything on a podcast.
They're surprisingly boring. Like, I mean, like, Florida didn't win that game. Teddy Bridgewater, like, diced us up like something fierce. But he was still, like, that stadium is like half empty because they can't really fill it with fans traveling from everywhere. There's no real good halftime entertainment. The announcer sounds like he's from somewhere else. Like he doesn't care about either one of these teams. So, man, I don't know. I don't think they're that great. If you're not going to the national title game I don't see the hype behind bowl games. I think in-season games are way better.
I went to this national championship game with my late grandfather. One and only national championship game. It was a blast.
That's pretty sick. Yeah, going to the national title games, obviously.
I will definitely sacrifice whatever I have to. If A&M ever makes a national championship game, I'll be there. And then pay me his bet after, A&M wins a national title before LSU.
I was actually thinking about that today. If you were to win the bet, would you take the $250 or would you make me have some stupid custom license plate for a year?
The license plate.
Just
so that way every day when you walk out that door, you got to remember.
I think you should just get them like those stickers that go in the back windshield, and it's just all the Yell leaders doing their favorite pose.
Oh my, whatever that little chain thing is.
That's a great. I might see if I can get the license plate with pictures of the Yell leaders on there. That'd be
Oh, I
good.
wonder. Let's see.
I doubt you can do that legally, but it'd be fun.
I mean, I've actually looked into this quite a bit because I wanted to do a custom plate for my car because they do have some really cool ones for like LSU. I believe. Son of a gun.
All right. Well, while Jerry's shopping live on YouTube,
Yeah.
do you think either one of these teams doesn't make the playoff if they lose?
No.
For the SEC, no.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Because I mean, the college football playoff committee said that like basically the rankings are frozen right now, and they're not going to penalize a team that's in the conference championship game.
What malarkey is that? Like,
Right?
some teams are playing for their opportunity to be in it. Honestly, like if Iowa State wins their game, they're looking to try to vault, somebody, or if like they come out and dominate Arizona State, but it's like, I don't know, man. Like, I don't feel like championship games meaning nothing is good for the game. I'll admit I loved November this year. It seems like a lot more games were worth a lot more of your time, a lot more interest because they meant a little bit more. But if it means that championship games go down the drain, I don't want it.
Yeah, I mean, it almost brings up the point that Lane Kiffin had, where it's kind of like we don't really care to make the conference title game. We're just trying to have a good season. And
It is kind of loser talk, though, isn't it?
I mean, yes, I agree. I may be one of the old school guys that when I think about A&M and the rebuilding process, I think we need to start trying to win conference titles. I mean, obviously getting in the playoff is great, but if you're the champion of the SEC, you've had one heck of a season. That's just where I look at it. So I would like to see conference titles start stacking up at A&M before we're doing this whole like, well, we should be in the playoff. We're national title contenders. Let's win the conference first. But
That's true.
I'm probably old school in that way of thinking. I know a lot of people now are just playoff or bust. So
it's available, Kyle.
Is that supposed to be horns down?
Hand
down? And
no, if you put an R in there, it's not available.
Obviously, because that's the preferable one.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, there you go. We'll see what happens. I think both of our teams are far from this bet being paid off one way or the other. So I don't think we have to worry about that just now. But
yeah, especially if LSU keeps bleeding recruits like they are.
Ooh, shots fired.
Mm.
Well, guys, for the SEC title preview show, as well as the all SEC team, I think we did ourselves some justice here. When this gets out on the national airwaves, they might start calling us to start picking the all SEC team.
Yeah, if anyone who watched this heard our lists, please leave us a comment who had the best all SEC team and how Jerry needs to stop being so biased.
Did y'all not like how cool the background changed the colors from SEC blue to SEC yellow?
Jerry, I haven't been excited about a PowerPoint since I saw my first one in high school.
Man, I am a master at PowerPoints. I don't know how to start them, but I'm good at making them.
Yeah, well, we found that out real quick. It's like, how do I start this thing? Yeah.
Hey, this is the Apple version. It's hard.
That's what you get. I have thoroughly enjoyed this episode. I enjoyed hearing all your reasonings for your picks, and we will be back on Sunday to recap the SEC title game as well as bring you our all SEC defensive team. And I would imagine that the college football playoff talk is going to be hot and heavy after the conference title games.
Oh, yeah.
We will see you guys on Sunday. Ta-da! So long. Okay.
So when the camera goes blurry, it turns out that's not a problem.